All right, folks, let's get started. Welcome to the special meeting of the RTM of the town of Fairfield for Monday, August 21st, 2023. Can the clerk please take the roll? Special guest, Dan Roche.
Edward Bateson, Marty Fury, Melissa Longo, Amy Ruggiero, Bill Gerber, Karen McCormick, I see it there, Cindy Perham, Jeff Steele, Tom Lambert, Sharon Pistilli, Laura Carson, Michelle McCabe, Marcy Spolier, Liz Ezema, Jennifer Barahona, Josh Garskoff, Joe Siebert, Jay Walk, Steve Barris, Hannah Gale, Andrew Graceffa, Lisa Havey, John Kuhn, Mark McDermott, Joe Vergara, Karen Wackerman, Cameron Chiniski, Hank Ferentz, Jim Myers, Nick Marabla, Christine Brown, Drew Georgiadis, Margaret Horton, Kelly Cinto, Ken Estorita, Peter Britton.
Here.
Story Tallman. Oh.
And I'm here, Karen McCormick.
Thank you, Karen.
Let's stand for the pledge, please. Okay, we have the new setup not completely working here tonight, so I think the only camera is that back camera. This camera here is not working behind me to focus on the presenters, so we'll be looking at the back of people's heads. So item number 2 is to hear, consider, and act upon the following appointments to the Ethics Commission as recommended by the Board of Selectmen. Gilbert C. Donovan, Democrat, 162 Green Acre Lane, term July 2023 through 2025. Paul Fatabine, Republican, 235 Village Lane, Southport, term July 2023 to 2025. And Donald Tackwosh Place, term July 2023 to 2025. Do I have a motion to approve? Representative Zezma, seconded by Representative Graceffa. Okay, we'll start with Mr. Donovan. Please step up to the mic at that table, and you'll need to press and hold the button to speak. I mean, we have all your information, but just tell us a little bit about yourself and why you'd like to join this commission.
Sure. Well, first, I'd like to thank the RTM for hearing me, and thank, of course, the Board of Selectmen for voting to put me through to this point. I've lived in Fairfield since 1986. School social worker. I was a corporate finance person with General Electric for 23 years and had other was with other commercial banks in similar capacities. I'm now a financial planner in the town of Fairfield. I have my own practice. And my interest in the Ethics Commission comes from a long background in banking where ethics and the training for ethics and the application of ethics in every day as we conducted our jobs was paramount. I've always had an interest in, being watchful for the behavior of other public servants and whether they're conducting themselves in a manner that meets the goals that we have as a society for them to represent us in in a honest and non-conflicted way. And I've been disappointed in the past with some of the behavior of public officials. And so I'm, have been trained in matters that have to do with the ethical conduct of people in business. Also very aware of the ethics requirements in government, and wanted to provide a public service to my town. I've served on the Water Pollution Control Commission. I was with the Board of Assessment Appeals. I was a parent volunteer with the youth soccer for many years. I was the director of the sports program at St. Thomas School in the town of Fairfield for several years. It was a voted and elected position. The other parents, the parents vote for who that sports director would be. And so I've always performed in some sort of voluntary role in the town. And when I saw that this opportunity was available, I thought that this would be a good place for me at this stage in my life to pursue and to be my way of giving something back to the community.
Thank you, Chip. Any questions for Mr. Donovan? Okay. All right, Representative Vergara.
Jill Vergara, District 7. I just wanted to thank you for your past service and being willing to serve again. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Representative Zesma.
Thank you, Liz Esma, District 4. Chip, I just wanted to say the same. Thank you for your past service. I think you will add quite a bit of value to this commission, so thank you for stepping up.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, you can have it. You guys are, what, are you still in vacation mode? Representative Georgiadis.
Drew Georgiadis, District 9. Chip, thank you very much. I'm going to ask every person who sits on the Ethics Commission the same question. Do you plan on attending? Because a quorum commission is very key, and often we don't have a quorum. So do you plan on attending the meetings?
Yes, I do.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I can let him go now. Thanks, Chip. Just have a seat for now. Mr. Fadabine?
Right button, I guess. All right, I just want to thank you for hearing me and listening to me. But basically, I've been a town resident for many years. I've been practicing law for 40 years. Seems impossible to happen. And trying to wind down my practice a little bit, to be honest, and try and slow up. Getting a little tired of doing it. But as to why I want to be on the Ethics Commission, my past public service, I like to think, was always based on need more than desire. I was in the RTM for a number of years, and it was sort of thought I can be helpful to be in the RTM. When I ran for the Board of Ed, it was the same situation. I thought I could be helpful in the Board of Ed. I'd like to believe I was. And same thing with the Ethics Commission. I think there's a need. I've always believed I was ethical and am ethical. I have to take 2 hours of continuing education in ethics, and I'm trying to put that to use. It's always nice to get some practice. Based on, I believe there was a need. I mean, and I didn't seek out necessarily to be on the Ethics Commission to return back to town government. But I'm glad I did. I think because I have a few people I have known in the past. It's nice to see them here still. And, but I have not been involved for a number of years. And it's nice in a way to get back in it and hopefully be helpful to the town.
Thank you. Any questions? Representative Georgiadis?
Drew Georgiadis, District 9, welcome. Thank you for stepping forward and thank you for your past service. My question to all people on the Ethics Commission is, do you plan on attending the meetings?
I always plan to attend. I believe the quorum is a 4, so you can't lose one member. And Ann in back of me knows my attendance from the RTM. So I don't think I missed more than a couple meetings, but she may know specifically over a period of long time. And the same thing with the Board of Ed. My attendance is of record, and I think it was very good. I don't think I missed more than a.
Okay, I'm just making sure, because it's an important issue on this commission. Thank you very much.
No, you should. It's your duty to do that. So I have no problem with answering that.
Thank you. Representative Volk?
Jay Wolk, District 5. I just want to echo some of our representatives' words about being, and thanking you for serving again. I've known Paul for many years. And then what Representative Georgiadis said, I can say that knowing Paul from the Board of Ed, you were there, I think, every meeting. So I just want to thank you. It's good seeing you again, and thank you for serving again.
Thank you for those kind words.
Thank you, Jay. Nobody else? Okay, thank you, Paul. And last but not least, Mr. Kleber. I'm wearing the wrong hat, but that's all right.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Don Kleber. I've lived in town since 1981. From 1977 to 2006, I served as a special agent in the FBI. Most of my time was spent in New York City. I did spend the last few years in Bridgeport office. On my retirement in 2006, I was governor appointed to the state gambling in the state, specifically any irregularities within the gambling industry. I made sure that the people who worked for me, that they did the backgrounds on every individual and corporate entity that did business in the state and approved them on a yearly basis. Following, when I left the state in 2017, I opened up my own private consulting firm, which I operated until the beginning of this year. As I said, I've been a resident of the town since 1981 at Takoshi Place. During that period of time, I served on the board of Little League. I also served on Greater Bridgeport Hockey Board. I was instrumental in building the Tungus Hill Little League field, raising the funds for the field during the time period that I was on the board. That was all private money. There was some town assistance with that. And I also served for 8 years on the police commission. To answer the question about attending, I don't think I ever missed a meeting during my 8 years on the police commission. And I served as chairman during one of those years.
Thank you, Mr. Kleber.
Again, the attendance is very important on this commission, so thank you for addressing it prior to me asking. Thank you for stepping up.
Any other questions for Mr. Kleber? Representative Vergara?
Jill Vergara, District 7. From your experience, it seems like you're really well suited for this commission, so thank you for volunteering to serve. And I did see from your CV that maybe you're from New Jersey. Did you grow up in New Jersey?
I did. I spent most of my take-home pay in the early years in New Jersey. And, then the FBI called and took me to Virginia, where I lived for a number of years. Then I ended up in Fairfield, but like I said, I worked in New York City most of my time. I was more crimes, but I also had a lot of other interesting experiences.
It seems like it, and it's nice to see a fellow New Jerseyan here. Not many of us around here, so.
Not many people say that.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, Mr. Kleber, you can take a seat. Thank you. Any public comment? All right, seeing none, any other further comments from the body? All right, so we're going to go to the vote now. To hear, consider an act. C. Donovan, Paul Fatabine, and Donald R. Kleber. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions? Congratulations, gentlemen, and thank you for stepping up and volunteering. We welcome you to the Ethics Commission. Okay. Item number 3, to hear, consider, and act upon the following appointment to the FairTV Commission as recommended by the Board of Selectmen, postponed from the June 26, 2023 regular meeting. Paul R. Foley, Republican, 175 Old Spring Road, term July 2023 to 2026, to fill vacancy created by the resignation of Anne Marie. Representative Wackerman, second by Representative Siebert. Is Mr. Foley here? Is Mr. Foley online? Can I ask who the guest is online?
Mark, it might be me. It's Tom Lambert, District 3. I don't know if I'm logged in as a guest or myself.
Okay, thank you. Who is call-in user 8? Okay. Any comments from the body on Mr. Foley? Representative Spolier?
Representative Spolier, District 4. Unfortunately, I believe if we don't vote today, this automatically goes through as him being on the committee as per the rules. So if we table this yet again, he will be on the committee. has not shown, and we do not know the reason, and it's a very important committee, I will be voting no, unfortunately. I'm sure he's well-intended, but unfortunately, I'll have to vote no.
Thank you. Representative Bateson.
It's in District 1. I didn't know that rule. Is that specific to the FairTV Commission?
No, the rule, and I didn't know this either, once the Board of Selectmen approves applicants, candidates, they can't come to us in anything less than 10 days, so that was a problem in June. But in fact, you only have 60 days to vote on them. Otherwise, they are automatically approved for their respective boards or commissions.
So what happens if this body votes no on the appointment? Does he go on anyway?
Not if we vote no. You know, if it's 21, vote is no votes.
Did you get any emails from him? Were you expecting him here tonight?
Yes, expecting him here tonight.
So it was confirmed attendance?
Yes, by Betsy.
Okay.
And this is the second meeting you missed. Representative Gerber.
Yeah, Bill Gerber, District 2. I'd be inclined to vote no as well, only because, you know, I watched the FairTV Commission meeting, and I actually may not have been a meeting because they didn't have a quorum, and the chairman was really frustrated that they couldn't get a quorum. So I think we need people that are going to show up to that commission, really for their sake. They seemed pretty upset about it.
Thank you. Any other comment? Representative Volk?
Representative Wolk from District 5. So he doesn't show up here, and go into Representative Georgiadis's question. If he can't show up here, how do we know he's going to show up at the commission meeting, at his meetings? This isn't new, what's going on with the FairTV commission. They haven't been getting a quorum for quite some time. It's not just happened this time and not happened in a long time. It's been going on for quite some time. So for various reasons, people have their lives and they can't make the meeting. But I mean, I was just recently on a WebEx meeting with them. I don't even know how they held the meeting. They didn't have a quorum. And yet Mr. Bremer was there discussing something about the FairTV filming the trial that's coming up. So I'm not quite sure, you know, where this is leading to, but it has been a problem for a while, and we do need people on the FairTV committee. I mean, I tried to go on, but I'm on the RTM, so I can't by the charter. So hopefully we can find some decent people that want to go to these meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Astorita.
Yeah, so I just want to confirm. So this individual had confirmed that he would be attending in June and did not show up, confirmed he would be attending tonight and did not show up.
Yeah, I was asked by the town attorney to put him on this special meeting agenda tonight.
Okay. I'm going to assume then that he committed and has not showed up, and as a result of that, in my opinion, then I'm going to vote no.
Thank you. Representative Bateson.
Ed Bateson, District 1. I just want to clarify the timeline. We can't table this till next week? I'm sorry, I don't have the charter or anything in front of me, so I'm assuming that what you guys are saying is correct. I really want to give the guy the benefit of the doubt. So if next Monday is a meeting, RTM meeting, if we could table it till then, I just want to make sure we're not missing a deadline. I want to make sure we can't squeak him in under the window.
I don't know the exact date when the BOS approved him.
Neither do I. I wasn't prepared.
So, I mean, it had to have been either.
Isn't this special meeting because
He was originally on the agenda for next week, and the town attorney asked me to move him to the special meeting tonight.
Mr. Moderator?
Yes, Mr. Baldwin.
Yes, I can tell you with some certainty, although I haven't looked at the charter, I can say that the rule about not appointing has to do with the Ethics Commission, but not other boards and commissions.
Sorry, Jim, can you speak up? We can't hear you.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
It's a little better.
All right. The rule about not voting has to do with the Ethics Commission and not this body or other bodies. I'm fairly certain of that. This is coming out from left field, of course. So that's my understanding. So I don't think that you are subject to a time limitation with respect to this particular nomination. And yes, indeed, it was my understanding that this gentleman was going to make himself available to participate, but I wasn't really part of any conversations that might have happened after that. I do know that he had some personal medical issues which prevented him from attending the last few meetings, but that's the extent of my information.
Thank you. Representative Bateson.
Okay. Ed Bates on District 1. That matches what I knew we had a clock running on ethics. I didn't think it applied to FairTV, so thanks for that clarification. Based on that, I don't like saying no to individuals, especially people that step up and volunteer. I don't like that. I know I'm not happy about this second meeting either, but I would like to give him the benefit of the doubt and hear him next Monday. So I'd like to table this until next Monday, and that would be my drop dead date on that. So I would like to make a motion to postpone this to our next meeting on Monday night. I don't know the date.
July 28th?
Yes.
I mean, August 28th.
Yeah.
I wish it was July 28th.
Yeah, 8/28.
Yeah. Second? Representative Vergara. Any comments on the motion in front of us? Representative Wackerman?
Karen Wackerman, District 7. I'm just curious why the nomination was added to this agenda. It wasn't originally on it, and you said the town attorney said it needed to be. Why couldn't it be next week? Was there some other reason, or?
We wanted to get all these appointments done tonight.
Okay. Okay.
And I agreed to put them on tonight's calendar.
I think I'll be voting no on this because I think he's had several times to come, and I am sympathetic to the health issue, but anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Representative Gerber.
Bill Gerber, District 2. I just want to make the point. I think this person is replacing somebody who never showed up at a meeting, from what I recall. So this is a problem with the nominating process, in my opinion.
Thank you. Representative Georgiadis.
Drew Georgiadis, District 9. I'm going to be voting no for the amendment and voting no for him. I understand that people's lives get busy, but you can communicate, and hopefully his communication last meeting and this meeting could have been better and just said something came up, and that's what we need to know, because these quorums are essential to the town working, and this is not a good indicator of his communication or his ability to show up. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Bastilli.
Sharon Bastilli, District 3. I served as chair of the Solid Waste and Recycling Commission for 10 years, and I did have one person who was voted on and showed up for 2 meetings and then never showed up for the rest of her term, and we had no remedy. We tried to get a hold of her to resign, and we could not fire her from the commission. So we had to operate for 2 years down a person. So we always had to have, it was extra pressure on other people where, I was in a situation with a dire family emergency that I couldn't work around, and I still managed to find my way to a meeting to get a quorum. So I very much sympathize with someone having health issues or personal issues, but if this is an indicator of how it's going to go, unfortunately, it's not in the best interest of the town to vote in favor of someone unless they can attend. Thanks.
Thank you. Representative Barahona.
Representative Barahona, District 5. I just want to reiterate Representative Gerber's point from earlier. I also watched the commission meeting and was struck by the frustration of the other committee members. And I also want to give people the benefit of the doubt and things come up. But unfortunately, we risk burning out the people who have committed and are showing up because they don't have a quorum and they can't proceed. And so we risk losing those people who have committed and are showing up if we move forward and we have someone who doesn't. So I will be voting no as well.
Representative Spolier.
Representative Spolier, District 4. I'm not sure if, so if we vote no on him, then the first select person will have to pick another person and it'll have to go through the Board of Selectmen again. So I'm wondering, does anybody know when the next Board of Selectmen meeting is from a timeline? Because if it's next, Monday or anything, I might be prone to wait a week if there's going to be no action, but I would like to implore the first select woman to start looking at the candidates because we need somebody on this board yesterday.
Jim Baldwin, Town Attorney, the next Board of Selectmen meeting, other than anything that might be scheduled as a special meeting, is September 11th.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on the item before us to table this? I personally think a week's not going to matter. I think we give him, 3 strikes, you're out, one more shot. He doesn't show up next week. It's not going to matter whether we vote no tonight or no next week. So that's my personal opinion. So we're going to, any other comments before we take this to a vote?
Mr. Moderator, I put in the chat that I'd like to make a comment.
Sorry, hold on. I had my calendar up because I was counting days. Yes, Representative McCormick.
Yes, thank you. So Representative McCormick, District 2, I feel very strongly that we're in a time in our town and quite frankly, just in government and volunteerism in government these days where it's very, very difficult to find people that want to put in the work. And I don't know that Mr. Foley is one of those people. He very well may be. And I think due to the time commitment of all of our volunteers, I think we should definitely give him at least one more shot to show up next week and speak to, his level of dedication to be a member of this commission and to show up regularly at those meetings. I think to assume that he's not going to show up just because he didn't get here tonight, maybe there's a personal family matter, a health issue, I don't know, but I think I agree with you, Mr.
Look at
Moderator.
that. Sorry for interrupting. Mr. Foley just popped on the screen.
Oh, excellent. I will go back to my silent mode here. Thank you.
Thank you.
I withdraw my amendment.
Thank you, Representative Bateson. Mr. Foley, welcome. I think you're muted, Mr. Foley. This meeting was supposed to be over in half an hour. How are we doing? Mr. Foley, can you call in? It seems like you're not connected to the audio. Or you don't have a microphone on your computer? I think, Ed, you want to bring your motion back.
Mr. Moderator, I'd like to withdraw my withdrawal. Reinstate the amendment.
Thank you. Any other comments on the motion to table this to August 28th at our regular meeting? Representative Spolier.
Representative Spolier, District 4. So I just want to state that hopefully he'll get that figured out and he'll be able to present himself at our committee meeting in a few minutes. And then we can vote on that at our regular meeting by tabling this to next meeting. So we will hopefully see him present in a few minutes, is my expectation if we approve this. Thank you.
I don't think that's happening, but I mean, all right, let's take it to a vote. All those in favor of the motion to table this to August 28th at our regular meeting? Aye.
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 How many ayes? That everybody get their hand up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Did I get you, John?
I'm not counting.
How many no votes do we have?
Please.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Anybody online voting no? Peter, you voting no?
I'm voting with that amendment.
So you're voting yes?
Yeah.
Tom Lambert, you're voting?
Yes.
Who else? Karen McCormick, you're voting?
Yes.
Okay, and what do we have? Okay, thank you. Motion passes. Thank you, Ed. Mr. Foley, we're going to need to see you here next Monday night at 8 o'clock in the Board of Ed conference room in person, please, if possible. All right, I'm going to make a motion to adjourn. Seconded by Representative Havey. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All right. We'll give it a minute or two. I'm going to move on to our regular scheduled committee meeting.
Hi, I'm Jill Vergara, and I'm one of the co-sponsors of the noise revisions to Fairfield's current noise ordinance. We put this presentation together to try to better explain some of the proposed changes, and we hope that this serves the community. So again, this is a presentation about the proposed revisions to Fairfield's noise ordinance. We undertook these revisions in response to constituent complaints. It's important to note that these complaints came from across various neighborhoods and RTM districts and followed no political affiliation. Fairfield is uniquely predisposed to noise issues. We have several areas of dense residential housing, high traffic town amenities, 2 large and thriving universities, and a huge increase in working from home after COVID. We've put a lot of work into these revisions and have discussed many times in quite a few public meetings before the RTM's Legislation and Administration Committee, as well as the full RTM. You can see from this list that we've reviewed several sources, including our current ordinance, other Connecticut towns' local ordinances, as well as the state regulations. And we've consulted with previous colleagues of ours about work that was put into these revisions in the past, and as well as residents' work on this issue. We've really tried to do a thorough review of the noise ordinance. What we've found is that Fairfield's ordinance is an outlier in the state. Fairfield is the only town in Connecticut with no daytime noise restrictions. Our town ordinance is less protective than required by state law, and this needs to be fixed. Enforcement of the current ordinance is hampered by equipment requirements. So it's important to understand that the state has a regulatory framework for noise violations that are supposed to serve as a baseline for protections against excessive noise. Connecticut has state noise regulations that apply to all towns by default. Towns can implement their own local ordinances, but these ordinances must be at least as stringent as the state regulations. 66 towns have adopted their own, including Fairfield. Connecticut's state noise regulations include restrictions on noise emissions in both daytime and nighttime hours. They also include specific decibel limits by noise zones that towns with their own local ordinances must match. Fairfield has its own local noise ordinance. It's in our town code under Chapter 78. It was enacted in 1985 and amended unanimously and ratified as recently as 2017. It prohibits excessive noise only during nighttime hours. And it requires officers to use a decibel meter to determine whether a violation has occurred. In effect, Fairfield is the only town in Connecticut with a local noise ordinance that does not protect people from excessive noise during the day. All other towns include daytime coverage in their town-specific ordinance or are covered by the state regulations, which includes daytime noise restrictions. Currently, when a complaint is made, police must go to that complainant's property, who is called a receptor under our local ordinance, and take a decibel reading. If the decibel reading exceeds the levels outlined in Section 78.5, the police officer must issue a warning. If the police have to return to the same property and the noise exceeds the specified decibel levels again, the officer must issue an infraction notice with a fine. Enforcing decibel limits requires the use of decibel meters, which the Fairfield Police Department does not typically carry. We've identified problems with Fairfield's current ordinance. Our current ordinance fails to protect people from excessive noise during the daytime hours in violation of state statutory requirements. So daytime hours must be added. Our current ordinance also calls for the use of decibel meters to determine whether a noise violation has occurred. However, our police officers do not currently carry decibel meters, and we've been told that they do not wish to carry decibel meters in the future, citing training and maneuverability concerns, as well as modern policing demands and standards in the 21st century. Instead of applying the local noise ordinance to noise complaints, the police department uses criminal laws in Connecticut's penal code to respond to noise complaints. These include creating a public disturbance, which is a criminal infraction, disorderly conduct, which is a Class C misdemeanor, breach of peace, which is a Class D felony or Class B misdemeanor. These are pretty onerous tools with higher standards than a local ordinance meant for higher level violations. There are no defined thresholds dictating what a noise violation is under these statutes. So the decision to enforce is very subjective. These criminal statutes also require intent to cause inconvenience, annoyance, or alarm, or recklessly creating a risk. Because these bear criminal liability, there is also a higher bar to finding violations. Consequently, out of the hundreds of noise complaints per year, only a handful of infractions are issued. The result is that residents complain of frustration with inconsistent enforcement, unpredictability, and times when excessive noise have gone unabated. The other thing to note is that these criminal statutes, like public disturbance and disorderly conduct, are fines collected and remitted to the state. But when fines are collected under Fairfield's local ordinance, they are paid to the town. Our revisions would be an update for our current ordinance. We need to make this update. It's required in order to bring Fairfield's noise ordinance into compliance with state law. The proposed updates would be consistent with typical restrictions in place in other Connecticut towns. First, adding daytime hours brings Fairfield into compliance with state law by covering both daytime and nighttime hours. This is required. Second, the audibility option overcomes decibel meter requirements by giving the police the option to use a plainly audible standard for noise complaints involving amplified music. This is not a novel or new concept. Many towns across Connecticut use the plainly audible standard, including Norwalk and Torrington. Third, the revisions exempt many activities from regulation. It includes customary protections to allow residents flexibility to maintain their properties, as well as exemptions for garbage collection and various other essential activities. It provides for variance procedure for special circumstances and events as well. As you can see from this discussion, the inclusion of daytime hours is necessary to be compliant with state law. We've defined daytime hours to be 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. Monday through Friday and 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. Saturday through Sunday. Weekend nighttime hours were updated to start at 10 p.m. instead of 11 p.m. This aligns our local ordinance with the state regulations. Weekday daytime hour decibel limits align with the state baseline requirements as well. To give the police more flexibility, the revision includes the option for an audibility standard for certain cases. Instead of taking a decibel meter reading, a responding officer can issue a noise ordinance violation if they determine that noise coming from a sound production device is plainly audible from a fixed distance. This is a common provision in other town ordinances, including Norwalk, Hartford, Bloomfield, Torrington, among others. The audibility standard is strictly limited. It can only be used in response to noise emitted from a sound production device. A sound production device is defined as any device whose primary function is the production of sound and is electronically amplified, including, but not limited to, any loudspeaker, radio, vehicle stereo, vehicle muffler, television, digital or analog music player, public address system, or sound amplifying equipment. The revision specifically clarifies that unamplified human voices are excluded, as well as musical instruments not attached to amps or speakers. We included a long list of exceptions in this ordinance, including natural phenomena, school, church bells, emergency sirens, OSHA devices, agricultural activities, human voices, school construction, emergencies, snow plowing, road maintenance, waste collection, utility repairs, public celebrations, permitted fireworks, public demonstrations, construction, demolition, and home maintenance between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. weekdays and 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. weekends, licensed blasting from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. weekdays, and landscaping and yard maintenance from 7 a.m. to 8:30 p.m. weekdays and 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. weekends. I need to explain this part of the exceptions because I think that there was a lot of community misunderstanding about how this functions. We are going to move these exceptions from the specific prohibitions because the way it was written, I think, was confusing. What was meant to happen was that these activities were supposed to be exempted completely from regulation at certain times of the day. We did this because we were adding daytime hours and we needed to be specific about some of the activities that would be exempted from regulation. And then outside of those times where they're exempted, they are subject to the same noise restrictions as all other activities. So if they exceed the decibel levels outlined in the ordinance and a complaint is made and the police determine that it exceeds those levels outlined, then a violation can be issued. But it is the same as all other noises. All of these proposed edits have been based on precedent drawn from the noise ordinances of other towns in Connecticut, as well as compromise. These revisions bring Fairfield into compliance with state law. There's also a fiscal benefit that we get the fines that are issued. It improves property values. It will improve public health. And this is a less punitive way to enforce these violations. In summary, residents report that they are subjected to unreasonable noise levels and that current enforcement is not working. Fairfield's ordinance is an outlier in the state and doesn't meet minimum protection requirements under state law. The proposed revisions provide protection from both daytime and nighttime hours as required by state law and eliminate key barriers to enforcement. The new ordinance would be consistent with typical restrictions in place in other Connecticut towns. I hope this was helpful in explaining these revisions. Please reach out if you have any other questions. We can all be reached at the RTM at fairfieldct.org, or you can reach me personally at jillvergara@gmail.com, which is JILLVERGARA@gmail.com, or any of the other co-sponsors such as Drew Georgiadis, Andrew Graceffa, Jay Wolk, and Jeff Galdenzi. Thanks so much. Hope this was helpful.
Good. Good.
draft we have. The website, get ahead of time what you're going to present so that we have some. I want this thing blown up on Monday night. You know, if you change it, or don't adopt something, or you change it.
Changes need to be made on the floor since that's the stage we're in.
Okay, so your plan is Monday night, you're gonna do all these changes?
I mean, that was yes, I thought that I had to do it that way, but it would be better if I could incorporate the changes that were negotiated, like that, like the golf courses and the garbage collection. If I could incorporate that in advance of the meeting, that would be preferable. But I thought I had to do it on the floor.
I think you're right. I think you do have to do it on the floor. But I'm just saying ahead of time, if you could get us the document of what you plan on doing so that we're familiar with it.
Yes, I can do that. I can get the co-sponsors together to do that in advance of the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Representative Barahona.
Representative Barahona, District 5. Thank you, Representative Vergara, and the rest of the committee. You've done an extraordinary job. That was so informative, so helpful. Really, really grateful for the time you put into that. I, like Representative Bateson, I think it would be helpful. I know when I see a red line version of a document, it makes me a little like I can't figure out what's happening. So I wonder if we could, in addition to the red line version, have a clean, maybe that's what you're suggesting, Representative Bateson, in addition.
That's easy. Yeah, get a clean copy too.
Great, thanks.
Thank you. Representative Horton.
Margaret Horton, District 9. Again, I want to thank Representative Vergara and all the co-sponsors of this. I really appreciate this presentation, and especially pointing out, I have to be honest, I wasn't aware, in my own fault probably, about the fiscal benefit. And I think that's so important that instead of the state receiving the money, it actually comes directly back to Fairfield. I think that's just really important, and I hope everybody pays attention to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Horton. Representative Steele.
Thanks, Jeff Steele, District 2. I thought we actually did go over some of these exemptions already, and we had kind of agreed to them, other than just putting them formally in the agreement. Like the golf course, didn't think those were even contentious.
I agree they weren't contentious, but I thought it was in a stage of the ordinance where I couldn't incorporate it until it was officially voted on by the full body.
And then can you share some of the issues that are still being discussed? You said you met with the police and there was not resolution, or there was resolution, or what are the sticking points that I'd like to be able to get?
Did show them some of some proposed amendments that we're contemplating, and it didn't seem like it satisfied some of their concerns, such as including changing shall to may be for some of the issued fines, and including discretionary language in two different parts of the ordinance, one in the enforcement section and another in the procedural measurement section. And there was also another discretionary paragraph that could potentially be added to ensure the police officers that they can always, it's up to them to decide which to apply. If it's a situation that warrants applying the state criminal statutes for this, it's up to them to decide.
Were these suggestions from you or them or just collective suggestions?
It was something that I put together after reading through the letters and some other just information online about potential ways that these can be written.
I have one more question, but go ahead to others.
Go ahead.
So my only other question is, and this is more general, but I was thinking if everything does revert back to state statute, I mean, again, just being devil's advocate here, why do we even have to update it? If it all goes to state statute governs the whole thing.
It's too confusing to have both a local ordinance and then also rely on the state regulatory baseline as, you know, a default. It needs to be incorporated into our local ordinance for the enforcement agent to know what to do. And it's required, you know, it really is specifically required that our local ordinance be at least as stringent as those regulations. So we could repeal it. We could repeal our local ordinance, but I don't think anyone here is talking about that. And I certainly wouldn't be supportive of that.
So it really, if we're trying to update it so that it matches state statute, and again, general question, then the only difference is that we're making ours maybe a bit stricter in certain areas, right?
It is literally such a small, minute difference from the baseline regulations that it's difficult to think that we've been debating this for so long, because I'd say the majority of these changes are necessary. And then outside of the necessary changes, you can find things that we can debate in the specific prohibitions and the exemptions language. But the changes that we could make are so, and that we have made are so small off of what the baseline is. And in comparison to what other towns are already currently doing, we're well below them.
So if they are so small, is there a way that just, you know, for all of us, maybe it gives us more comfort to vote and support this? Can you specify what those small little changes are that are just slightly stricter, just so we know what they are? I mean, because otherwise, you know, we're matching the state statute. But if you are making some additional changes, they are likely to be stricter than, because they have to be at least as strict. Could we, just so we know what they are? And, you know, back to Mr. Gates's point, there's a lot of red lines, just so we know, kind of get a fresh copy and we know, all right, what are the new changes that are slightly stricter?
Hey, Jeff, I just wanted to say something to Georgiadis. I just want to thank the entire body. I especially want to thank Jill. We've been in front of the LNA and in front of the RTM since February, going over, making accommodations, listening to people. And I think just from listening and attending all the meetings and reading all the documentation, one of the most important things, and Jill can tell me if this is the plainly audible. That is not in the state statute. That is what the police want. They want more discretion. They don't want to have to arrest people, charge them with felonies or real criminal issues. Most of these people are not intently breaking the law. And this also gives them more discretion. And as Representative Horton said, it diverts the fines from the state to the town. So that alone is a reason to have a noise ordinance here in Fairfield and not just throw out the noise ordinance. This is better for the police officers, it is better for the residents, and it's better for the town budget. So that alone, in my opinion, is worth having the statute. And as you and I have gone over in LNA over and over and over again, we know all this information. And this presentation is available to the public now, and it's very well written. So We have worked so hard to make all of these things, we can go on and on, meeting after meeting. But after 6 months, I think we've done a good job. So I'll pass this over to Jill.
Thank you, Representative Zesman.
Thank you, Liz Esmond, District 4. Jill, really outstanding job, and to all of the sponsors, of course. It's a collective effort. And I want to thank you for being so responsive over and over and over again to both your colleagues, to the police department, to the public. I mean, this is as much accommodation in the true sense of representation that I've seen on anything. I do have a question though. What was I was off the body, I'd gone to the Board of Finance. What were the amendments in 2017 that enjoyed like literally unanimous support, including support from the police department? And what's the difference now?
That amendment I joined late, the revisions I joined late. It was Representative Farnan who put them forward in 2017. And I joined on the late side as a co-sponsor. Initially, I hadn't been allowed to join, but I think that it was having difficulty getting through. So it was revisions to the timing. And I can't remember exactly what it was, but we changed the times for weekend and weekday and weekend hours. And, you know, when the ordinance is put before the full body, you get the entire ordinance like we did just now. And so the language that existed then is the same as what we are reviewing right now in terms of like the enforcement section and the decibel levels and the procedure of going to a receptor's property when a complaint is made and taking the decibel reading. Right, in the virtual.
Okay, thank you. I don't know what members of the body present voted for it in 2017, but you haven't done anything to those revisions that have created objections specifically.
In the 2017, well, no, it was unanimously approved.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Representative Estorita.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Ken Astorita, District 10. And I just want to say, I do appreciate the effort that you guys have put in on this, and I've seen this improve as it's gone through the process. And, you know, I'm to the point now where last month I was inclined to say, you know, to vote no, but now I'm leaning towards yes based on some of the things that I've seen and hopefully some of the things that will be incorporated next week. One of my big concerns coming into this is I didn't want to see a change in the ordinance where, you know, you hear it like, you know, the no fun police or allowing neighbors the opportunity to weaponize something like this against other neighbors. And I'm feeling more comfortable about that. But I just want to ask like a concrete example. I think one of the areas where we have most of the issues is down in the beach area. How would this ordinance impact that area where, you know, my understanding is you've got a lot of homes in close proximity within 100 feet of one another, where I would assume this time of year, a lot of people have windows open, so sound travels easily. How does this affect that area specifically?
Yeah, do you want to? I think it's hard to do it without a specific example of the noise issue, but it's this we're using the same procedure. So okay.
So here, like, so for instance, I
have an example. So I think it was Thursday night. I get a text from my neighbor behind me. I live up Puritan Road and Birch, the corner. And because we have a good relationship with all our neighbors, she's like, oh, my daughter's having all these people over. We're going to have music. Don't worry, it'll be off at 11. Do you have so-and-so's number, so-and-so's number, so-and-so's number? And she texted everybody and she put us all in a group chat and everyone's like, great, have a good time. So glad your 15-year-old daughter's having people over. And no one was going to call, right? So this is how it's supposed to work. It was amplified music, but So is that the kind of example that you wanted?
See, I was thinking more along the lines of, let's say I'm in my house, I've got the windows open and I'm playing my stereo. It doesn't necessarily have to be very loud for my next door neighbor to hear it, particularly in summertime. Is that something that is now a violation of the plainly audible standard? That's what I'm just trying to.
Everything starts with a complaint. Keep that in mind. People have to complain, and I don't think your neighbor complain.
In most cases, you're right, but what if you do have the cases where, like you've got it being able to be liable to complain, that's what I want.
It's also the police officer who is the intervening agent who has to assess the situation, do the investigative work. If the officer is applying the plainly audible, they determine whether or not it's excessive or not based on it's discretionary.
So the officer.
It's not, they're not going to be compelled to do anything when they don't think it's an excessive noise.
Okay. No, that's what I want to hear. Okay.
Thank you, Representative Ward.
Thanks, Margaret Horton, District 9. I can maybe answer by giving a more anecdotal example, if that would be helpful, just of not my own, but friends who live on Fairfield Beach Road who were telling me recently about there was people having a party. I think it was probably more college students. This was before the school year ended, and they have elementary school age children. And there was one evening, and by the way, these are people who are completely fine with, people having fun and parties and everything. But there was one evening where overnight they ended up calling the police 3 times during the course of the night. And we're talking at like 1 a.m., 3 a.m., et cetera, not what we would think of as just normal party hours. And there was really nothing, nothing that was resolved or that could be done. There was no decibel meters, readings or anything. And so this is the kind of thing that they're living with on a regular basis. So that's just one anecdotal example of how I think this could help.
I think that's a good example because we also don't want to be imposing criminal statutes on students either. I want to do the more lenient, lighter thing is to just impose town ordinance fine rather than having something potentially go on a kid's record. And I think, I just think that that's a better course of doing it. And I do understand why we would impose infractions based on breach of peace or public disturbance in certain issues, but they should be egregious. And there are egregious examples of things happening around town, but thankfully not a tremendous amount. And I'd like to be capturing these more minor issues that we do want to be controlling.
And one great thing about mirroring the state statutes for the daytime hours that we're required to do, that the police can go, if it's rocking party and it's only 9 p.m., they can sort of slow it down so that it's not 1 a.m., 3 a.m. Because we've had some complaints from people around Sacred Heart, again, amplified music during the day, and it just escalates, and then it's hard to put a stop to.
Thank you, Representative Ward and Representative Bateson.
Ed Bateson, District 1. Jill, I just want to go back to the way you handled Representative Astorita's question. If there's a plainly audible issue, under its current form, are the police compelled to act, or are you planning on a revision that will give them the option to act?
It is an option. They can decide whether to use the audibility standard or the decibel reader in terms of measurements and which standard they're going to be applying. And in both of those cases, there's some kind of discretion involved, more so with the audibility standard. It's necessarily so when you're funneling this through an enforcement agent to decide whether something is violating and, hearing acuity. It's discretionary.
Okay, I just want to reiterate that my takeaway from the interactions we had with the police department in this room was that they want more discretion on the street to enforce. So that leads me to believe that in its current form, it's strict
on they shall do this, they shall do that.
In the current form, it's just completely reliant on those decibel readings and they're.
No, I'm I want to get confused with current form. Yeah, your current proposal.
So you mean what amendments we would be making on the floor on Monday? Even in the current form of the ordinance that is before us right now, there's discretion with the audibility standard. A lot of language that I hope to include is clarifying that discretion and making it, just putting it onto the paper to make sure that everybody is aware of that and knows it.
Okay. I've heard your answer. I'm not happy with the answer. I think my takeaway from this is that your current proposal, without your intended revisions next Monday night, is restrictive on the officer that they shall do certain things. So I don't think your question was answered properly in light of what is before this body right now.
Yes, you're right.
They shall issue a warning first that already exists in the ordinance. And then for the second,
5 minutes ago.
then for the second thing, if they determine that it's a violation, the officer determines whether it's a violation. And if they're using the audibility standard, which only can be applied to sound production devices, but if there's amplified music and they're using the audibility standard, they decide whether there's a violation. They decide.
Thank you, Representative Sessions.
Thank you, Liz.
Representative Horton just told a story that sounds to me like we really need to do something. I mean, if the police, using the discretion they should have, show up at a house at 1 and 3 o'clock in the morning, how much discretion do you need to know that that's a violation? If you say you can't solve that problem, then we need something to augment whatever they're working off of right now.
I do think that this is going to come in stages with this ordinance, and that was intentional. We took this as an incremental step to try to clean up what we saw as the biggest problems. And I do think that, and this is a proposal that I made to the chief, is I do think annually they should report like they do for some of these other ordinances in the same month and tell us how it's going, how enforcement is going, and then the RTM can tweak it accordingly.
So in 2017, were any changes made, would have changed the question that Representative Astorita, sorry, but I like your new last name. So, you know.
I've heard a lot worse, trust me.
So would it have, would have his answer been different? I mean, I'm just trying to understand what happened in the past number of years that a unanimous approval of amendments to an ordinance has now turned into, a battle over something that seems like it's never been heard before.
I don't really know. I think a lot of the consternation comes from that shall compulsory language that has always existed. And I'm glad we know about it now and we can try to directly address it. But I don't really know what happened in the intervening years. And maybe it's, I can't put words in anybody's mouths, but I did understand from the conversation that I had with the chief, which was really amicable, and I'm very glad that I had it, was, they're genuinely concerned with having this align with 21st century policing techniques and the standards that they're held to. And they want to be able to, they want to be able to confer with people, work with people, and not just slap fines or slap infractions on people. And I can understand that, and I get it.
I completely agree. I'm very happy that you had a productive meeting with them. I just want for the record to say neither Representative Farnan, who I believe was the sponsor, or the police, were concerned about the shall language at the time, which was, of course, their right to be concerned about.
So I've been looking into this word shall a lot. And it actually came before the Supreme Court of the United States in town of Castle Rock, Colorado versus Gonzalez. And their ordinance said shall, that you shall. The woman had a restraining order against her husband, and it said shall. And the Supreme Court found against her that that word shall did not require the police to enforce the restraining order. So I think if you look at that case, that all your worries about this word shall will go away.
So it's important to clarify the difference between like state statutory criminal language, like a penal code, versus town ordinances. So in that situation, that was like a penal code, a criminal statute. And even in that case, the court was holding that shall doesn't bind a police officer, and that police officers should inherently have discretion. But and the same goes for a local ordinance, but it's important to understand that if you go through our town code, every single ordinance says shall, because town ordinances are just different. There's different implications for them. They're not criminal, they're lighter. And if you look at any other town's ordinances, for anything, it almost always says shall. It's a very normal thing to do, which doesn't mean we have to continue to do it if the police, as the enforcement agents, have an issue with it. But it is important to understand that it is like, I reviewed the town or the local code, our town code, and like I could not find an instance where it's not used. So it's very common in ordinances.
Representative Steele.
Thank you, Jeff Steele, District 2. Just maybe I can clarify a little bit for Representative Bates, and maybe it was clarified, but there's current ordinance and then current proposal, and then potentially a newly proposed proposal or new changes to it. The current ordinance has shall and does require them to act. The current proposal keeps the same language, but now we're discussing what Chief Calamares said would be a nice change. And I think right now, as we go to update this, it's a good time to look through the whole thing. And if one of these words or one of these phrases or parts of it concern them now, and we're going through the update process, why can't we do that? And whether the word shall is used in ordinance everywhere or not is almost, beside the fact. He brought up two issues where shall is used at the state level. What do you say when there's a crime of violence at the state level? He listed two instances which are shall, and everywhere else is a may. And I think to create this discretion they're asking for, changing shall to may, if they feel more comfortable, and we all can, and there's not this difference between the two, then I think we do it. I know there's also a clause in the state statute, and I think this is really what they were just trying to achieve, and that was they also require investigators to make a reasonable effort in light of the circumstances to correct a violation or achieve compliance by means of conference, conciliation, and persuasion, and to go that route before, like you said, slapping fines and giving tickets and arresting people. So I think that's the gist of it. And
we do satisfy that already with our warnings. So that's not a universal thing applied for the noise ordinances in all towns. Having the first step be a warning. So that is the kind of effort to be conciliation and working with people. So it's supposed to be, even if they're finding a violation the first time they go to someone's house, they should be just giving them a warning, and hopefully that fixes everything. And it's only if they go back to that same place.
Right. So again, but not to be handcuffed to definitely give a fine or infraction in the second offense. I mean, that's the whole point of discretion. Maybe there's a reason every call that they make they have to depend on having the right for discretion to make decisions. That's their job. That's what they're trained to do. So I'm glad we're discussing it, and I hope that is something you put in it, because I think that would make a lot of people feel more comfortable with it.
I'd like to say it's also the discretion of the person. If they get the warning, they can continue to, violate the noise ordinance and risk getting a fine, or they can stop. So it's discretion on both sides. So that's something to think of as well.
Representative Bateson.
And Mr. Steele said it. I'm good.
Representative Astorita.
Yeah, Ken Astorita, District 10. Thanks, Representative Steele. That helped clarify actually some things for me. But I'm not concerned about like the 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning example. I agree. Like that's pretty self-evident. What I'm concerned about is like the 2, 3 in the afternoon stuff. Middle of the day stuff, and that's where it's important for me, for the police to be comfortable that they have the discretion how they feel the best way to act. And I know we talked about it at the beginning. I think it would be very helpful for me if we got a clean draft of the ordinance that's being proposed, and then if possible, if you guys apologize for that, if perhaps like you could put just like a cover of the amendments that you're going to be proposing, you're expecting to be proposed at next Monday's meeting, that would be very helpful for me.
Thank you. Representative Volk.
Jay Walk, District 5. So I can't thank you enough for everything you've done, Jill. I mean, really, to take this on, do we really need all the, I'm exhausted from this for months. So I remember being, voting once on this body. I don't know whether you were on, Representative Bateson, or who else was on. Hank, maybe you were on. I remember we discussing burglar alarms going off constantly. And that's a noise ordinance. How do you like to, if your neighbor's burglar alarm and the siren's going off, at 3 a.m. But I remember that we decided, I guess we voted on that, the first time they go to the home, it's a warning. Just like now. And the second time, I think they get a slight fine. And then the third time, then they get slammed with a higher fine. And that's something that I think, I think everybody who's been on this RTM for a long time know that I've been an advocate for the police department, and I've even been on the police department as a special. I have a special thing in my heart for their police department here in town. They've helped my family out. They've been there. So would be the last one to be part of this noise ordinance to hurt the police department, to hurt the officers. I think this, going back to Representative Bates, and I think, of course, it's going to be a discretion to the police officer who shows up in their best discretion on what they're going to do next. And to you, Jill, I don't want to see college students getting this on their records either. This should be, a fine for them, but not go on their permanent record for, they have records playing too loud, And Ken, I can side with you. I mean, the reason why I got involved in all this is because of noise in my condominium when I was the president, like I said before, of gardening, of the gardeners showing up at 7 o'clock in the morning with their leaf blowers. That's a problem. But I worked that out with them. So I want to thank you for everything that you've done.
Thank you. Anybody else? Or have we beat this enough tonight and the last 6 months?
Representative McCormick is on remotely.
Okay.
If I may ask a question.
Go right ahead.
To Representative Vergara, how does the proposed daytime hours impact, for example, Sacred Heart University, and they're conducting football game activities during the day, let's say on a Saturday or a Sunday?
if someone is going to complain about it and if it would violate the decibel levels at the point where the police officer would do the reading, which is at the receptor's property, not the emitters, it's the receptors, then they should implement soundproofing measures if this is an activity that they want to engage in a lot. If it's a one-off, they can apply for a variance. But that's the way it's got to be. And there are ways that businesses and schools can be implementing soundproofing, and they're not. And they're not protecting their neighbors from this, and they really should be. If this is emanating to a point where it's going to register on a decibel reader, or a police officer is determining that they can hear it in a plainly audible way because it's music from so far away, then it's really quite loud.
So the marching bands, for example, that perform at football games, both, well, I guess Fairfield U doesn't have a football team anymore, but Sacred Heart, I think, does, and various outdoor sporting activities that have a band component, that would potentially violate this noise ordinance as proposed.
If it's amplified. Yeah, as far as I'm aware, most marching bands don't amplify it, but yeah, if it's attached to some kind of amp or speaker and they're
okay, if it's not projecting, if it's not attached to an amp or speaker.
If it's not, then it can't be subject to the plainly audible standard.
Okay. And secondly, I just want to make a comment. I looked at that Castle Rock versus Gonzalez case. It does not stand for the proposition that shall language is not compulsory to law enforcement. I think if you look at the holding of the case, just from a legal perspective, it has to do with somebody suing a town under a due process claim, indicating that they had some kind of a claim against the police department for failure to enforce a statute. But it certainly does not stand for the proposition that shall language is not compulsory on a police department. So I don't want anyone, either from the public or from our body, to walk away, according to Representative Georgiadis's lay interpretation of that case, that it somehow excuses the police from not enforcing an ordinance that says shall. That case law does not stand for that proposition. So I just want to make that point and clear that up. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else that's online? Nobody else in the room? Okay, so we will adjourn to our committees. Make sure you call in if you're online, and make sure you record your meetings. Huh? You guys? Yeah, you.